This show is sponsored by Sevi, answering all your commercial real estate needs. Sevi is the first commercial real estate company committed to the 4 C's: commercial real estate, community, content, and culture. Go visit Sevi at Sevi, SEVI, properties.com. Again, SeviProperties.com. Hello everyone, welcome to the DMV Business Show. I'm your host, Otto Sevilla, and today I have a very special guest for you. We have Blake Pierre. Blake is a mixed media artist. Welcome to the show, Blake.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Of course, the pleasure is all mine. So before we go into your career, your personal journey, I like the audience to get to know you a little better. Are you originally from the DC, Maryland, Northern Virginia area?
Yeah, so I was born in Shreveport, Louisiana. I relocated here at the age of 10, actually. And so I've been here for the majority of my life. I relocated to Louisiana to attend Grambling State University in Louisiana. And I just recently moved back here about 3 or 4 years ago from Chicago.
Okay,
Yeah,
nice,
it's great to
nice.
be back.
So you said originally from Freeport, right? I've actually never visited Louisiana yet. So I
Mhm.
guess, area wise, how close is that to New Orleans, or is that totally way?
I get that question a lot. So Shreveport is about 4 hours from
Oh, not
New
close.
Yeah, so not very close. Shreveport is North Louisiana, and then New Orleans is Southern Louisiana. So it's a bit of a difference there.
Got you. So like the town or the city, what would you say the population roughly is?
Oh man, I don't even remember, but it's much smaller than the area that I'm in now. It's considered, I wouldn't say a major city, but it's definitely the biggest city in North Louisiana.
Okay.
So it's not tiny, but it's not a large city at all. No.
Sure. So you said you grew up there till you were about 10 years old, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So if I can just briefly take you back to Freeport, growing up as a child there, like what were
Shreveport.
you into? I'm sorry?
Shreveport with an
Oh,
M. Yeah.
I'm so, how what is it again?
Shreveport.
Shreveport.
Yeah, yeah, you got
Oh,
it.
okay. Thank you. Thank you. I thought it was Freeport. Okay. So if I can just briefly take you back to Shreveport, like what were you into as a child, outside of school, any sports or activities you liked?
As a child, I remember doing taekwondo really young, and so that's something that I was really into as a young kid. I went all the way to black belt, and
Oh,
so that's
wow.
something that I did for a while. I would draw a lot, not as much as I did when I started to take it seriously, but I remember being like in kindergarten, and I saw a kid do like a really realistic drawing. I was like, "Hey man, can you teach me how to do that?" And from there, I kind of picked up drawing a bit more, but it was just something that I did as a hobby, just like any other kid. I wouldn't
Hmm.
say that I drew more than most kids growing up my age. I was really into like anime and sports and things of that nature. So I guess just a regular, growing up, being outside a lot, playing basketball. I was really into that. So just kind of a regular childhood. I really wasn't exposed to art in Shreveport, Louisiana. Like I said, it's a small town.
Hmm.
Is we don't really have an arts district or anything of that nature. So it really wasn't until later that I was exposed to art in a much bigger sense. But I would say my growing up in Shreveport was just a lot of time spent with family and kind of being outside and just really being more active around that age.
Sure. So you said you moved to this area around 10. What brought you to this area?
So my father, he got a much better job in DC.
Hmm.
And so we ended up relocating here. And that was a big thing at the time. I remember I thought we were rich. We were middle class, but in my mind, we were rich. And it was kind of a big deal. And so we moved to a much bigger neighborhood. I remember there was a lot more kids that I was around. And so it had a big impact on me growing up. I remember coming to this area and I grew up in Prince George's County. And Prince George's County at the time was the richest black county in the nation. And so that was my first time riding around and just seeing like a Mercedes or a BMW for the first time. We didn't see things like that in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Hmm.
And so I would say relocating to this area, it definitely exposed me to a lot more. And it allowed me to realize that there was a lot more that I could do as a black man. And I think it was really good me growing up here as far as my development and just dreaming bigger and seeing that I could do more and seeing other people my color do more. So it had a huge impact on me.
I love that. I mean, your surrounding is very important, right? What you're exposed to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what high school did you go to in Prince George's?
I went to Glen Park High School. Then I believe my sophomore year transferred to McDonough High School, which is in Charles County. And so that's where I graduated from.
Okay.
Mhm.
And even here in high school, coming out of high school, did you have an idea as far as an inclination where you were thinking as far as your future?
Absolutely not. So it was a crazy story. I played football in high school, and my junior year, I believe it was like 7-on-7 during the summer. I went up for a pass, and then I remember I fell from pretty high up, and I fractured my wrist pretty badly, and I was out for 15 weeks. So that was it for me in terms of a senior season. I wasn't able to play,
Oh, wow.
and
What
so
position?
I played receiver.
Okay.
And so that really was the beginning of me kind of figuring out things. And so I remember taking an art class. I took my first art class my senior year in high school. And I remember kind of, being more engaged in it and really finding it a little more interesting, probably due to me just having a little more free time.
Hmm.
And so I started to draw a bit more in my free time, but still not it wasn't consistent. I didn't know anything about art. It wasn't like cool to be an artist or anything of that nature. So I had no drive, to
Hmm.
do it. It wasn't until I graduated and went to college that I sort of started taking it seriously. But I remember the fall before I went to college, I went to a big game called Bayou Classic. So Bayou Classic, it's a classic. It's a game that's played annually between Grambling State and Southern University. It's a huge deal in New Orleans. It takes place in New Orleans in the Superdome. And so my parents took me to that because I was attending Grambling State in the fall. And so I remember after the game, we were on Bourbon Street, as everybody else was. The streets were packed with people. And so I walked into this gallery, and that was my first time being in a gallery. And so I remember walking through the gallery and seeing the art. And I talked to the gallery owner, who was a black guy, older black guy. And I said, man, hey, how much is the art in here? And he didn't say, he showed us like on a paper, 20,000, and we saw something for 30,000. I remember my brother said something crazy, and I was thinking, man, I could do that for 20,000. These were like simple,
Yeah.
simple abstract pieces that I felt anybody could do. And so that really, he really encouraged me to pick it up, and he was like, yeah, you can, you should try it. And so when we flew back home, I did try it. I went to the art store. We got some paint, and I painted my first piece, and it was an abstract portrait, and I liked it. It was pretty expressive, and so I was very pleased with it. I still didn't see a future in it for me. It was just something that I kind of did for fun to see, if I could do it. It wasn't until I went to Grambling State and I painted, I believe, two more pieces. It was a piece of Jimi Hendrix, and then there was another original piece that I did. And I kind of shocked myself. And I said, okay, man, maybe I should change my major to see how far I could really take this. So there was a little bit of I wouldn't say anxiety, but I definitely didn't know anything about art. I didn't know that you could be a professional artist. I had no idea how to go about that. And so that was definitely a challenge and some things that I had to kind of figure out on my own. But I just committed to learning and investing in bettering myself in that craft, and it's played out. So that was sort of the conception of how I became an artist.
At that point, Blake, what major were you in that you decided to possibly switch?
So I went majoring in psychology, and my
Okay.
goal was to go to law school, and I wanted to be a lawyer. I didn't know exactly what type of law,
Mm-hmm.
but that's sort of what I was thinking. And so it's really interesting. It kind of came full circle because my work is highly tied to psychological study. I'm still studying psychology pretty intensively. I love Carl Jung's work. That's somebody that I really look up to, and I love what he did for the field of psychology and his contributions to the field. And so that's somebody that I study, and I'm a bit advocate for his work in terms of really delving into the self and understanding your own psyche better. And so it still plays a role in my art for sure.
Sure. So did you end up actually switching majors?
I did. I switched my major to art, knowing nothing about art or, how I would
Yeah.
make it work. Uh, but I did change my major and I decided to just focus on art.
Okay. So then you graduate with an art major, right?
Right.
And I know you said you also lived in Chicago. So did you move back up here to the Maryland area, or did you go from there to Chicago?
So I went from Grambling State to the School of Art Institute of Chicago.
Okay.
All I really knew in terms of opportunity was grad school. And
Mm-hmm.
so I went there. I didn't graduate with a BFA. Grambling State was a state university and it offered a Bachelor's of Arts in Science. And so I didn't have enough credits to jump straight into the MFA. And so they admitted me into a post-bachelorette program, which you finish and then you basically are admitted into the MFA. And so I did that. And that is really what exposed me to a lot and taught me a lot in terms of how to make it as an artist. I learned a lot about the history of art. The School of Art Institute of Chicago was connected to the School of Art Museum, and so that had a big sort of impact on me. Really, just being exposed to a lot and learning a lot through that museum and through my professors there. And so, I would say that played a huge role in terms of really opening my eyes and allowing me to see what I was capable of, in terms of pursuing art and gave me a better idea of how to go about it.
Okay. That's great. And so you were in Chicago for a few years, right?
I stayed in Chicago for about 4 years. So I love Chicago. Chicago was great. I left during a time where there was a lot of political stuff going on in terms of protests and things of that nature. And COVID was also going on at the time. So there was a lot going on. And so I decided during COVID, like, hey, maybe I should go and get a full-time job because at the time I was a full-time artist, just working and painting and making money. And you make some good money, but it isn't consistent. And so
Mm-hmm.
I felt that I needed something a bit more consistent. And so I just chose to fly back home and to teach. And so that's when I started to teach. Started with younger kids, and now I'm at Duke Ellington School of the Arts, which is an arts high school in DC. So
Oh, that's
that's sort
awesome.
of I moved back. Yeah.
Okay. So in Chicago, you were actually making a living as an artist. And you were just mentioning now how it was inconsistent. How easy or difficult was that? Because I'm sure like any artist's dream is just to just focus 100% of your energy and time into that, right?
Yeah. So I played around from like full time to part time. So I had like part time jobs that would sustain me in terms of like having a check.
Mm-hmm.
But the bulk of my energy then was painting.
Mm-hmm.
So I would take as less hours as possible so that I could just focus on the craft. And I would get a lot of commissions, things of that nature. They would have like different things in the city that I could, there was a lot of, I would say, commercial opportunities in Chicago. Chicago is a much bigger city than DC, and they had a lot more opportunity in terms of commercial opportunities. And so I was really able to take advantage of those type of opportunities. But it was difficult. It was difficult. My mindset was definitely different. You're a lot more stressed, and you kind of have to. It's just a different lifestyle. You're not as comfortable as you are with a full-time job.
Hmm.
And so there are pros and cons to that. The pro is that you're getting to do what you love and you're doing it all the time. The con is that you have to eat what you kill. There is no steady check coming in. And
Hmm.
so if you don't find an opportunity, then you're just stressed for the rest of the month. And so that was a challenge, of course, but I think the bigger issue was that I still hadn't fully figured out how to make a living as a full-time artist. And so I still had a lot of growing to do, a lot of learning to do in terms of understanding the art market, understanding how to capitalize and really make a solid income as an artist, and even how to produce an effective body of work that would really captivate my audience, and would really do what I needed it to do in terms of like expressing what I was trying to express as an artist, make me money, get me the
Hmm.
right recognition, to get me more opportunities. And so it was just a lot of learning curves that I was attempting to work through, that it just took time for me to learn certain things. And so there were definitely challenges with it.
How do you feel you have evolved now with that?
Yeah, so I would say it's been what, about 3 or 4 years since then. And I would say I just really understand how to make an effective body of work, which is something that I didn't understand at the time, because if you look at my background, I didn't come from an art background. And
Hmm.
so the time that other people were spending in creating bodies of work that they could show and things of that nature, I was still trying to figure out my style. I was still trying to figure out my voice. And so to try and sell your work full time, yeah, you can get a lot of commission work because you're talented, but to show in the type of venues that I wanted to show, and to be the type of artist that I wanted to be in terms of showing in big galleries and kind of having that name recognition, that was very difficult because I didn't understand how to navigate that yet. And so it took a lot of time, a lot of mentorship in order to get to the place where I am now, is where as I understand certain things better in terms of the direction I want to go with my art, the voice that I want to have with my art, the type of work that I want to make, my aesthetic, um, and sort of the things that I do well in terms of my skill set. I would consider myself a talented artist who needed the time to really explore and experiment in order to really get to this balance where I can really showcase all of the things I do well in my art. And so that took time. That took time and experimentation. And so I feel like I'm really just getting at that place where I can say, okay, I'm finally here. I feel like the work that I'm making is actually reflecting my mind and what I want to express. And so I would say that just takes time as an artist. And because I didn't initially start out painting from a young age, that's something that I kind of had to work through as an adult. And so it hurts a little bit more because you have to make money as an adult.
Hmm.
But at the same time, that journey just taught me a lot. And I'm glad and appreciative to have gone through it. So,
How would you describe your work now?
yeah, so now I would describe my work as very spiritual, highly influenced by the study of psychology and just spiritual development and different practices that influence or kind of move that path along. And so I guess I would say that I've really tied my artistic practice into my spiritual practice, which is just, meditation, introspection, a lot of reflection, a lot of, service to others and things of that nature, to kind of grow spiritually and really develop, and really focus on the transformation of one's total being, mentally, spiritually, and physically. And so that is what I'm about. That is what my work is about. And I would say that's where I am now.
I know you said the first piece you did when you came back home from that trip to Louisiana was abstract. Would you say, are you more doing more abstract, or I don't know, maybe what tools you like to use as far as in more painting, more pencil? I don't know, you know?
I would say the same thing, just more evolved. I
Okay.
use a lot of different materials. I would consider myself a mixed media artist. And so I use oil paint, acrylic paint, glass, different types of materials. And so I would say now, my work was always expressive. It's just that I have more mastery over the tools that I'm using now.
Hmm.
And I can use them with more balance. For instance, I like to paint pretty detailed. I also like to paint very abstract and chaotic at times. I also like to use glass. And so it took me a while to be able to put all of those different aspects and ingredients together to fit into one finished product. And so that's where I would say I am where I am now in terms of my progression as an artist, is that I know how to use all of these different tools, and I make all of these different aesthetic choices, and I'm able to balance them in one artwork instead of doing just an abstract piece or just a very detailed figurative piece. I know how to combine the two in a way that I didn't quite understand how to do younger in my journey. So
Are those behind you some of the pieces from, are those some of yours?
yeah, so these are all pieces that I'm working on for the solo show. Um, And so maybe I could send you some pieces so that you can kind of show on the screen when we show this interview. And so these are all works that I'm working on for the show. Yeah.
Okay, nice. So speaking of the show, I mean, this perfect time we can go into it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So if you can share with the audience, the sh I know the show starts later this month in March. When does it start? Till what does it go until when it ends? I believe in May. Where is it located? If you can go into details about all that information.
So the show is March 28th, 6 to 9 at Joan Hisoka Healing Arts Gallery. The show, in a nutshell, is really inspired by really kind of sort of what we just talked about: reflection, introspection, meditation, and other spiritual practices, as well as like service of self. I said service of self. I'm sorry, service to others, as a path to spiritual development and growth, and really just transformation of one's being, whether it be mental, spiritual, and physical. And so that is really what the show is inspired by, and sort of what I'm thinking about when I'm making these sort of works that I'm making. And I kind of depict that through my own journey very creatively. I'm inspired by mythology. And so really delving into a lot of different mythologies: biblical mythology, ancient Kemetic mythology, Greek mythology, you name it. And those are all kind of influences, aesthetic influences for the work.
Oh, that's great. And it ends in May, correct?
I believe it ends in June.
Oh, June. Okay, June. Okay. Is this your first show, by the way, Blake?
This is my first show that I've put this much effort into. Yes. I've had other shows. I've had another solo show in the city at Art of Noise. So this will be my second solo show in the city. Yeah. In
Okay.
DC. Yeah.
How is this second one, different from the first one?
For the first one, I would say I still did not make a conducive body of work. I was kind of still fumbling through how to do that successfully because I really didn't, I hadn't quite figured out my voice yet. And so
Hmm.
it took about 2 years to really do a lot of research, a lot of experimentation through my practice, and really kind of merge the two. And so that you kind of getting the birth of that with this show.
And that first one was when? Was it last
This was,
year
I believe,
or?
2022. This is about 2 years
Oh,
ago.
so 2 years ago. Okay. So in 2 years, you've actually grown a lot then, as far as, okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I've had a lot of time for growth, reflection, and kind of making adjustments and just developing as an artist, as a researcher. And so that's really helped to evolve my creative practice for sure.
How many pieces did you do for this show?
I have about 8 pieces, pretty large scale. So
Hmm. Okay.
yeah.
So I'm sure the goal is a 100% sellout, right?
Yeah. Of course. There's maybe one or two that I would like to have maybe travel and show at different venues and things of that nature, maybe different art banks or museums. But the bulk of the work, absolutely, I would want to sell. Yeah.
So it looks like this one compared to the first one, it's more like 100% you as far as you're there, right? So what are some like not expectations, but what are you looking forward to this time around?
I would say I'm looking forward to the conversations that I could have through this body of work, really using this body of work as a platform to really delve into some interesting conversations and just really sparking thought in my community. Pretty involved in the community in DC, the arts community, and so just kind of really sparking some interesting conversations there. And then also, really excited about opportunities that may come from this show, different partnerships, collaborations, talking to cool people like yourself. And so I
Thank
would
you.
say that's what I'm excited about is just really talking about the work, my journey, and sort of how I got here and my intentions moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, I would say DC is a very artistic community for sure.
Mm, yeah.
You said you're currently also teaching at Duke, right? How long have you been there teaching at Duke Ellington?
This is my second year at Duke Ellington.
Okay, as a art teacher, I
Yeah.
assume?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
As an art teacher, yeah.
I'm very familiar with Duke. I grew up in this area, so I grew up
Okay.
in DC, and then from DC, I don't know if you're familiar with the high schools in the district. I would have gone to Woodrow High School, which is also in Northwest DC, where near
I am
Duke.
familiar with Wilson.
Yeah, so I would have gone to Wilson, but then I moved out of
Yeah. I
DC.
have a few friends that went to Wilson.
Okay. Yeah. So I would have gone to Wilson, but I moved out and moved over to Prince George's County. So I graduated high school from PG County. Um, so always just grew up in this DMV area. And Duke, I
Mm.
remember like
What school
running,
in PG?
I'm sorry,
What school in PG?
High Point High School.
Okay, I'm familiar.
Yeah, yeah, you're familiar with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I graduated from High Point, and but growing up in DC, you would see people like, oh, I went to Duke, and it was mostly a lot of like, um, artists, like oh, I'm starting theater, or I'm doing theater, or art, or this and that, or I was like, oh, okay, it sounds like a pretty nice school if you want to go the like the artistic route, right? Um,
Right.
how do you like? How do you enjoy
Yeah,
being a teacher there?
I love teaching here. The kids are so creative. I actually had no knowledge of Duke growing up. I didn't know anything about this school. I didn't know about Duke maybe until about 2 years ago when I moved back. I was meeting a lot of different artists in the area. And I would hear the name Duke, 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 everybody talking about Duke. I'm like, what is this school people talking about? And so I went for a student show that they had at Duke. And I was blown away by the student work. And I remember thinking this work is better than most adult work that I have seen in the area.
Uh-huh.
And I just remember just really being amazed by the talent and the skill level of the students here. And so I'm definitely extremely excited and happy to work with these kids day in and day out. It's been a huge blessing to me to be able to work with such talented artists in the area and really make an impact in their life and be an influence for them and sort of mentor them and just be a resource for them, and do all I can for them. So I love teaching here at Duke.
Yeah, yeah. Have you ever bumped into Chappelle? I know he went to Dave Chappelle. What?
I have actually. He came here, I believe it was for a workshop.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
he did a workshop and he spoke to our students. I believe this was last year actually. And so
Okay.
that was great to kind of see him and talk about his experience at Duke and kind of how it shaped him, as the comedian that he is today. And so that was super impactful for sure.
You were just mentioning now, like how much you enjoy actually, teaching and sort of help shaping these students. Have you felt that you've learned anything from them that maybe you can use yourself, whether personally or your artistic side?
Every day, every day.
I'm
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty young, but they would like to think I'm old, and so they're always trying to teach me something, man. Whether it mostly technology wise, and so when before I came here, I was not very savvy with digital art and working on the iPad, and so that's definitely something that they're teaching me every day. Just different tidbits and things of that nature on how I can better use things like Procreate and Photoshop and things of that nature. They're pretty good at that. And even just helping them teaches me a lot because for one, it keeps me sharp. And two, I'm always, in the back of my mind, like, I have to be on point and on my game so that I can be the best guy for them that I can possibly be. And so that definitely keeps me on my toes and keeps me sharp as an artist because I know I have to help people who are very, very talented. And if I don't stay on my A game, they could definitely pass me up one day. So I have to stay on it for sure. So it's great being around them. I love to be around young people, man. I love the energy and just the creative spirit here at Duke. And so it's been a blessing, man, and a great influence on my work for sure.
Yeah, I heard something once, and I'm probably butchering it as far as, if you want to get better at something, teach it,
Mhm.
right?
Oh yeah.
You want to improve at any skill or whatever, teach it. And then with time, with that teaching, you yourself individually get better at whatever you're trying to teach.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I've learned a lot since I've been here. And really it has helped increase my standard in terms of certain things. But yeah, man, teaching, you learn a lot teaching a subject. You have to continue to study and continue to do it yourself so that you
Hmm.
can be on top of the game and just be the best that you can in order to help them. So it's definitely been a great teacher.
Have the students try to persuade you to create maybe an NFT or something with your artwork?
Not an NFT, but they've definitely encouraged me to get on social media more. I've kind of been lacking on social media, so that's one thing that they're on me about constantly. Like, Mr. Blake, you should make a TikTok. You should post like this, and you should do it. So they're always giving me little nuggets and dropping jewels. So that's been, really helpful.
Yeah. No, but it's so true. I mean, I have kids of my own, and sometimes we talk about things and you might get an idea. You're like, oh, you know what? I never thought about it that way. Let me think about it. Or maybe do it. Try it out.
Yeah. And I would say mostly what has helped is there's just um, a spirit of critique and just kind of helping form ideas along that the students have really picked up from me. And so when I'm working on something, they'll throw a little suggestion here or there, or Mr. Blake, this is really working. You should really focus on this and push this, and so that's been really helpful, and it's really made an environment where everybody's work is just pushed to the next level. So that's definitely been very impactful for sure.
That's great that everyone sort of helps each other out and basically raises the bar up on each other, right?
Right, right, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You were mentioning as far as creating work, do you have a studio? Is it during the school for you personally, or is there somewhere at home or some other place where you actually do the work?
Both. So I work here in the classroom when I can. I have a pretty large classroom and a pretty big area to be able to create.
Hmm.
I also have a home studio that's pretty large. My entire basement floor is my home studio, and so I've been able to work out of my home studio as well. And so I kind of work between both.
Okay. Well, that's great. You
Yeah.
also said something recently, Blake, about, the students saying, "Oh, Mr. Blake, go on TikTok and do this and do that with the camera,
Yeah.
with the phone." Selling art, I mean, it's almost a business, right? I mean, you want to sell your body of work. First of all, you want number one, people to notice you, what you do, therefore sell it and sell it for a high figure. From a marketing standpoint, now that you mentioned TikTok, social media,
Hmm.
how do you personally get the word out there that this is the piece you're working on, this is what you do, just to get awareness?
Just a lot of networking when I can. And so obviously you have to spend a lot of time in the studio to create an
Of course.
effective and impactful and innovative body of work, right? Being at Duke has really helped because this is a great community of artists and there's constantly foot traffic coming into Duke and you meet some pretty cool people in this building alone. I'm also pretty active in the community. I try to go to different art events as much as I can and support different artists in the area. And so that helps out. And then I'm also a part of BADC, which is a group here that is full of different artists and curators and things of that nature. Also a part of Millennium, which is another art group. And so I have a pretty good community of different artists and curators and been able to meet a good, so that's really helped out in terms of just getting the word out about different events, what I'm doing, you know, and so that's really helped out a lot.
So it's mostly networking. It sounds like with a lot of artists and curators.
Yeah, of course, social media plays a part. I haven't been as active, but I have a pretty decent following on social media. And so, just a collective of different things and different ways of going about things has just really helped to kind of get the word out about what I'm doing and what I'm about. So,
What platform do you prefer to best, or would you say you're most active in, or you try to be?
I would say I'm most active in Instagram.
Of course, that would be great.
There could be more effective, platforms, but I just stick to what I know, honestly.
Hmm.
Instagram is my go-to if I'm promoting like a show or things of that nature.
No, I mean
And then
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I also just word of mouth. I'll hit my people up, my different communities. I'll send out flyers and just let them know, hey, I'm doing something or I'm having a show here. If you can come and support, that'd be great. So a little bit
Yeah.
of both.
No, I mean Instagram is great. I mean, I think it started just like that, more for like photographers and showcasing their work, right, for their
Yeah,
photographies, and now it's evolved to what it is today.
right, right. So Instagram has definitely been a great tool as well, for sure.
What would you say, Blake, motivates you and drives you?
I would say wanting to express and get out all of my ideas before I die. That's my biggest goal, is to die empty as an artist. I don't want to die with anything left. I want to express all of it and get it all out. And so I think that's the biggest thing driving me nowadays is just to get and express all of my ideas out. And then I would also like to really challenge people in a sense and really I would say use my art as a platform to have really interesting conversations and conversations that I think would push the community forward,
Hmm.
spiritually, mentally, and physically. And so I would say that that is my biggest driver, is just one to have really interesting conversations and using my art as a platform to do so. And then just wanting to get all of my ideas out and die empty. That's my goal.
Yeah, that's great. Just leave it all on the canvas or whatever it is you're using at that time, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I need to get it all out.
That's great. As an artist, I'm sure you've had points where you maybe had a setback, or you didn't think, you thought something was going to go one way and it went the other way. What can you think of, I guess, that a setback that you may have had as an artist, and how'd you go about that?
I would say maybe applying to grad school and not getting the scholarship money that I felt I needed to be successful in my graduate, study. And
Hmm.
so that's something that I definitely had to work through and find a way to really just kind of engage in my own exploration and my own study outside of that whole, path, and really just keep pushing and moving forward. Also, COVID kind of played a big part in me kind of reshaping things and rethinking things as far as how I need to go about things and just really developing my mindset as an artist and redefining why it is I even do what I do. I think during COVID kind of made me think, well, damn, this is a pretty real situation. And so, well, how does art even matter? At this point, people are dying and getting sick, and people can't travel. Clothing is no longer, you're worried about fashion and things of this nature. None of that was a thing during COVID. You worried about your loved ones and making sure they aren't getting sick and your own well-being. And so I really had to do a lot of deep digging to kind of redefine why this is even important to me. And so I would say those are kind of some things that I went through that really kind of helped to reshape my mindset and why I do what I do. And so those things really helped to kind of reshape me for sure
So
as an artist.
during COVID, Blake, were you almost thinking as, should I even continue with this art? Is this even important, I guess?
Right. Yeah, that was my thought. Like, man, does this even really matter? And if this doesn't matter, how do I matter? If I'm an artist.
Yeah.
And so it definitely played on my mental for sure, just kind of thinking that, man, maybe this isn't so important. But I think it is, I think it's just you have to focus on who you are and really define for yourself, why does what you're doing matter? Why does it matter to you? Why does it matter to other people? And that will help you to kind of push through when you meet resistance and you meet different things that will come up in life. Because this may not be the last pandemic that we face, but when I
Hmm.
face the next one, I'll have a better understanding, and I'll understand and know I have value no matter what's going on in the world, and what I'm doing does matter. So,
Yeah. You're better prepared because of everything you went through before in the past.
right,
Yeah.
right.
If someone's listening to this and, maybe they want to become an artist as well, or maybe one of your students, they're like, Professor Blake, what do you recommend for me to do if I want to make my profession an artist and do this for a living full time? Any suggestions or advice?
My first suggestion would be to define why it is you want to be an artist, because without a strong why, you won't be an artist very long. It's a very challenging path, and you need to be able to continue through that, even if you're not making money. And so you definitely need a strong why. That's first and foremost. Second of all is you need a very, very strong work ethic, and you need to have the ability to be very social and network. A lot of artists are very passive and shy, and they kind of very anxious about talking to other people. And so those are the two biggest things that I see with my students and just other young artists in general, that they kind of have to get past if they want to be successful as an artist. And then the third thing is understanding that this is a business. We're not just doing this for fun. We are creatives, we are expressive, and we do this for a living. However, you won't be doing this for a living if you cannot make money off what you're doing. And so one of the things for them is that I need them to understand that by signing up to be an artist, you're signing up to be an entrepreneur, whether you understand that or not. And so you have to educate yourself as an entrepreneur, as a business person. You have to think business minded. And those are some of the things that are going to sustain you on your path and your journey as an artist. And those will make things a lot easier for you. So,
I love that. That's all great advice, Blake. And it's so true. I mean, to see it like a business and even
mhm.
like the networking part, because I can see there. I'm sure there's probably artists just like there are also business owners and entrepreneurs who would just prefer to just lock themselves up in their studio or office or whatever, wherever it is that they conduct business or their body of work and just stay there and just work on their passion and their love. But then if like you said, the networking part, right? If they don't know what you do, if you're not out there shaking hands and smiling or whatever, or posting online or whatever it may be, how are they going to know everything you're creating in that studio?
You could be the best artist in the world and nobody will know because you didn't have the skills or the aptitude to promote it, to get yourself out there and really meet other people and get them behind what you're doing. You need to be able to sell yourself as an artist. And so there are certain skills that you need to be able to develop to be as successful as, you possibly can in this field. So
Yeah, I love that. Great advice. Is there any specific habits or traits you feel you have that have helped you, whether, in your artistic career or just on your personal career?
100%, my ability to connect to other people. Because like you said, if you can't connect with others, if you can't sell your story, if you can't get out and just really network and be social, then nothing you're doing matters. Nobody's
Hmm.
going to come and find you. You have to be able to promote yourself. You have to have the confidence and the wherewithal to put yourself out there in that way. And so those are sort of things that you need in order to be successful.
How do you personally juggle? Because I know you're a teacher also, and also an artist, right? And I understand you're a family man. I think you're expecting your first one.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Congrats, by the way.
Born in June.
Yeah. What'd you say? I'm sorry.
First born in June. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So how do you juggle all that with, family life, being professor at school, also being an artist. How do you set up your time, or how does your day look, right?
Yeah, just really having a lot of discipline and being able to manage your time. And that's another thing I would suggest to young artists to learn early. I wake up pretty early, around 6. I'll hit the gym. And then after the gym, I have a pretty long commute. It's about an hour, 20 minutes. And so I get to school as early as I can so that I can paint before class. Then I'll have a little prep. I'll go about class, mentoring and helping the students through their projects. And while they're working, if the situation permits, I will work on my own projects. If not, I'll wait until after everybody is kind of settled and in their groove, and I'll try to get as much time I can throughout the day. And then when the students will leave, usually from 5 to 7:30, I will paint. Usually, I'll paint until they kick me out of the building. That's sort of my method of madness for right now, especially preparing for this show. And then on the weekends, I try to get as much time as I can. So it's really just a sacrifice, man. I can't go out as much as I would like.
Hmm.
A lot of my time is spent sacrificed in the studio, and that's why I said you have to have a very strong why. You need to find why you're doing this, and it needs to be for a very strong reason so that you can sustain that type of sacrifice over time.
Yeah, it's so true. What would you say is your biggest challenge right now with what you're trying to do today?
I would say maybe my biggest challenge is wanting to go even further in terms of what I'm making and even the scale and um, how far I can push my work, and then having a restricted amount of time to work on those things. With not being a full-time artist, I kind of have to work around my schedule and just make as much time as I can. And so I would say maybe that's probably the biggest challenge now is just being very serious about my craft and wanting to push my work in a different way, and then having to be very, very disciplined with my time and make the necessary sacrifices in order to make the strongest bodies of work that I possibly can.
Yeah. Coming to an end here soon, Blake, what do you know now that you wish you would have known at the start of your artistic career?
What I know now that I wish I would have known at the start of my career is that your voice really matters in art. And so defining your voice as an artist is probably the biggest thing you can do. And there's so many different aspects to art that we tend to focus on one aspect for years. For years, I just focused on becoming a better artist and developing my skill in my craft. And because I started at a later age, it sort of took me a longer time to focus on my voice and what I actually wanted to talk about as an artist and what I was about. And so I think that is probably one of the biggest things is just really finding your voice early and kind of really understanding your subject matter, being a scholar on that, and marrying that with your creative practice in an effective and innovative way.
If someone's listening to this and they're still in that position as far as trying to find their voice, any suggestions how they can go about finding their voice?
Yeah, I would say think about what you're passionate about, and you need to be able to invest in research. A lot of my inspiration comes from research. It comes from reading, it comes from experiences, it comes from a lot of reflection and introspection on the things that I am passionate about. And that's why I'm able to share it in a creative and innovative way as I am now. And so I would say that that's my advice is to just really focus on what it is that you're passionate about, be a scholar on it, whatever that is, and really just dedicate your all to being sort of an expert on that subject matter. And then you'll feel very comfortable and depict that in a very adequate and innovative way through your practice.
That's great. You mentioned earlier as far as having mentors, and I guess that helped you evolve. What'd you learn from them?
So when I say mentorship, I really mean friendship, man. I've had friends who
Hmm.
are a bit further along, and so I sort of kind of lean on them and their experiences to kind of learn and grow. I have not had the mentorship that I wish I had. I wish I had somebody like me when I was, my students' age. I would have turned out a lot differently and been able to move along a lot quicker. But I've been able to really utilize just reading and sort of looking at different people on the internet. That's been a great resource, YouTube, and sort of looking up other artists and kind of doing research on their path and how they've went about certain things in their career and really paying attention to their moves. And so I've used that as a mentorship tool.
That's great.
And that's really helped me in terms of my development as an artist for sure.
I know you have this big exhibit coming up here. What are you most excited about? What does the next couple of years look like for you?
Next couple of years, just bigger and better things, man. I'm going big in terms of just really going after expressing to the highest level the ideas that I've had in my head for about 2 or 3 years. Because when I was teaching younger kids, I did not have the patience. I won't say patience. I didn't have the time or the energy to
Hmm.
make the work that I wanted to make. And so being here is just like, man, now I have a little more time. I know what I want to do, and I have a better understanding of how to do it effectively. And so I'm just really excited about getting all of those ideas and those concepts out on canvas and sculpture and just exploring different ways of creating for the next couple of years. It's going to be fun.
Any big idea you can share that you have in mind that you want to do?
So I really want to get into sculpture. That's one of the
Oh,
things I'm
nice.
excited about. And so just really kind of learning how I can incorporate what I do into different aspects of art, maybe not just canvas, but different found object sculpture or, maybe getting into some clay and things of that nature, even exploring digital media. And so really just kind of branching out and using different mediums to express different ideas that I have in innovative ways. So
That's
really excited
nice.
about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. Blake, when you're not busy working and creating, what do you like to do for fun in your free time? That little free time I know you don't have much of.
Yeah. I hang out with my wife, visit the fam. I like to go out with friends every now and then, go to different art events and things of that nature. I think it's just kind of important to tie what you do into your fun time. And so you kind of always it's like always business, but you get some pleasure out of different aspects of the business. So I like to network and go out to art events and things of that nature. Vacation is cool every once in a while. So we keep it limited to that for now. I'm on the
Yeah.
grind right now. So
That's true,
I
but
don't know
it's
that I have a healthy balance, but it's enough for me.
but I agree with you as far as mixing it, but business and pleasure. I mean that's probably one of the reasons I started this show, the DMV Business Show, is just a mixture, a combination of all that put together. So it makes perfect sense.
And I would say even podcasts, I'm interested in doing a podcast myself one day. But I think that would be fun for me. It wouldn't feel like work. And so I think that you just have to find what you're passionate about, what you love, and tie it into your work. I'm a firm believer that we only have a limited amount of time on this earth. And so we need to be extremely productive in order to get the most we can, out of our life and our potential. So if I could tie some fun into purpose, excellent.
Yeah.
So that's my motto.
No, it's so true. What I do is actually commercial real estate for a living. And when I started this show a couple years back, it almost re-energized my commercial real estate business. I started being more creative, started things from a different angle. But I completely agree with you, Blake. Um,
Yeah.
if people want to learn more about you and this new exhibit coming up, where can they go to, please, to find more information?
Yes, Instagram is Blake Pierre, BlakePierre. The website is blakepierre.com. And so you can go to those different avenues to kind of learn a bit more about me and follow me as an artist and what I'm doing and different events that I'm having.
And for those of you just hearing, Pierre is Pierre. Yes. Blake, thank you so much for joining me today. I had a ton of fun.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Pleasure was all mine. Take care.
You as well.